Welcome to the Salience Podcast, where we identify what stands out from all the noise.
Usually in the Salience Podcast, we interview authors or amazing people that inspired us while we were writing Resilience by Design. The podcast was conceived as a way to explore people and their ideas in more depth than we could cover in the book. This episode is something of an exception, and somewhat to my embarrassment, I have to admit that we missed Staffan's important contribution to resilience when we did our research. Somehow, we managed to miss the most published book on how to be productive. Monotasking, How to Focus Your Mind, Be More Productive and Improve Your Brain Health, has lots of practical techniques to improve how we can manage our attention. The quality of the ideas and the layout explain how the book has sold a staggering 750,000 copies. If you enjoyed learning about the distinctions between creative mode and task mode in our book, Monotasking takes the ideas further. So please enjoy my conversation with Staffan Noteberg about monotasking. I've got an opening question which I love to ask because, and it relates a little bit to something you get to towards the end of your book in Monotasking, and it's this. You talk about a cone of uncertainty, and I really like this concept, and I work with that strategically when I'm doing strategic facilitation with organizations. We spend quite a lot of time understanding where are we today and what sort of direction do we want to head. And I think in the sense of, you know, personal time, personal attention management, how you organize your day, I think there was something fantastic there in that idea of a cone of uncertainty, where instead of saying I'm going to deliver on this goal, which is so uncertain and so in the future that I can't really predict it, but I'll make something up anyway, and myself and everybody around me will be very disappointed. You talk about almost like an evidence loop that says, well, just make a start in the right direction and then check in, and then you'll discover together, you know, as things become a little bit more certain. And I like to ask a question which I'm going to ask you now. And this relates to sometimes the dreams and aspirations we have when we're at school. So going back to the young Staffan, where you're at school, you know, I can't imagine that when you were that young, you were thinking, I'm going to write a book on monotasking. I'm going to be the world leader in how to organize your day to get stuff done. What did you think about when you're a kid? What sort of things were you inspired by, or what did you want to be? Did you want to be a train driver, or what was it?
Yeah, well, when I was really small, when I was like a preschool, this is what I've been told. When people ask what do you want to be, I always want to be a veterinarian. You know, small kids, they like dogs and things like that. And then my parents said, that's good, Staffan, because then you need high grades in the school. So you need to study hard. But then I think I forgot about that before I was 7 or something like that. But when I was like 7 to 15 or something like that, I always wanted to be a professional football player. You know, association football. In Europe, when we say football, we mean what in US say soccer. I don't know how you name it what do you call it in Australia?
There's several games in Australia. There's one called Australian rules football, which involves passing the ball to each other and doing all sorts of strange things with it. I've been to one football match with a friend of mine, a Collingwood supporter, and in Australia, there are many sides, but there's Collingwood and everybody else. So I went to this match with him. I barely understood the game, but I had a lot of fun. So they call it football. There is soccer here as well, but yeah. So you wanted to be a professional footballer, and
sorry.
And then what happened?
And then well, I think what fascinated me was not really the game to play. It was fun to play. I played a lot until I was 20 or something like that, but more the analysis and the patterns and the collaboration and cooperation that football is so complex. You know, you can only play with the feet. You're not allowed to use your hands. So it's very hard to control the ball. As soon as someone is attacking, you will probably lose the ball. And you need the defense. I mean, you can play for like 5-10 minutes without a set piece, and then everybody has moved around. So you have this position which has never happened in any game in the history before. So it's always emerging, and to have a good defense then with these 11 players, you need to you need to talk about patterns and recognize patterns during the game, and also make analysis of which patterns the other team is using while you scout them before. And I think this is really fascinating. So it's not about the supporter things. A lot of people like football for the supporter thing. They live for the team or so. And it's not really the individual player thing that fascinates me. It's more the anthropologian thing of collaborating in such a complex environment where everything changes, and you never come back to this position that you had before, that anyone had before.
Yeah, that very much resonates for me. I'm also fascinated with patterns in all walks of life, from sporting excellence through to patterns of communication, behavior, leadership, big passions of mine. And it's interesting that you very deliberately talk about patterns and complexity and emergence. And I think I've read many books over the last 20 years or 30 years now, really trying to improve my own business performance, or my own performance as a researcher, as a scientist, as a manager, a leader. And I think that yours was the first book broadly in that genre that really does provide flexibility and adaptability for patterns and complexity. I think so many of the methods that I've tried in the past have been too linear and require me to almost be a robot. They require me to operate in that complicated domain where you're just organizing tasks and your life is linear, and my life is absolutely not linear. I'm always looking to have the best of both, the freedom, the creativity, the patterns, being able to adapt in the moment. But I like the benefits you get from being organized and efficient when you have decided to do something. And your book for me was the first book that I've seen that has actually managed that really well. You're almost, we have a saying, you can have your cake and eat it. It's that I can do both here. I've got the flexibility, the agility, and also the structure to be efficient when I've made choices. And I think for me, that was one of the two standouts for Monotasking. I think the other one was just the accessible style and the brilliant layout. I really enjoyed that. You can open it and you can go, okay, I can read this. And our aspiration with our own book, Resilience by Design, was to do something similar where you don't have to read 1,000 pages from start to finish. You can just open it and go, I'm just going to dip in here for now. My question, I'm incredibly impressed. You've sold 700,000 books now, which is an incredible success. Do you think, in addition to I've just said I really enjoy the book, and I do think it's well put together. Do you think the big pull is that so many people are desperately struggling to maintain focus? Do you think that's part of the success?
I think that everybody, at least people that live in this world where I live, where they work in an office and they have tasks they need to get done. Everybody wants to get more done, and they also want to get in control. I think there's no limit of how many good tasks we can come up with. We will always know far more valuable things to do than we will ever be able to complete. And a challenge there is to get in control of that, to get on top of that and understand. And also everybody wants to create value. And the interesting thing is that a good amount of these books, this is a incredible big amount of books for. I think there's probably a window for these kind of books because I think I'm not a particularly gifted writer. It's not that, but it's a window. But I think a good amount of these books were sold in China, in Chinese. So it's a translation into Chinese. And 2015, so that's 7 years ago, I went to China. I was invited there on a tour for 5 weeks. So the publisher had arranged this tour. And before I went there, because I knew very little about China, about people in China, and so I was thinking about that it will be interesting to figure out why this book is popular in China. If this is something cultural, or if it's mandatory reading in some university course, or whatever it could be. And every day I went around with some people from the publisher, and every day I had some talk in a different city. And so some days I was in like a bookshop and in a small room, and 2 people appeared and listened to my talk. And another day I was the keynote speaker in some big conference with 1,500 people in the room and tens of thousands online. And everywhere I tried to figure out why is this book popular. And they always said, like, how can we complete things when we have so many things to do? And I think that this is something that bothers a lot of people, that they have far more things to do than they can achieve. And that puzzle will never be solved, because we can come up with more things than it's possible to complete. So I think you have to have other kind of strategies for managing this than just saying this is valuable or this is not valuable, or now I've done everything I need to do.
Most organizations don't do strategy very well. Almost every organization I've worked with has had a very, very large strategic document that is a shopping list of what we'd like to do. And one of the things I like about your work, and I think you talk about weeding, removing tasks. And interestingly for me, that's the number one thing I ask people in their strategy. Okay, you've got your shopping list. This is everything you want to do. Tell me what you're not going to do. Tell me all the things you're not going to do and how come you're not going to do them. And I guess I'll open this up to a general question. Have you used that approach before in strategy? Branching out more than just personal organization, more at a team and an organizational level?
Yeah, both individual and team and organizational level. And people are often they fear removing things from their shopping list, as you say, their list of things, because they think these are really important. But if the wishes exceeds the capacity, they won't be done anyway. It's not just putting things there and then they are done. You need to do them as well. And to remove things means that you can focus more on the things that you want to do. And an important thing here, I think, or an aspiration for me, the first book I wrote about Pomodoro was very much about efficiency, core efficiency. So how you have lists and put lists with things, and you move things you make a plan for the day and things like that. But what I saw was that this might work for me, but for most people this demands or requires too much discipline, and most people want something more intuitive, something simpler, but that where the default version becomes what they want to do, and then they can maybe nudge it a little bit if they see that they want to do something else. And one thing about that, I think one really good thing is this short list and this weeding. So you say, instead of having a big list of things and say, what should I do from this big list? Select a few things and put the old list in a shredder, And if these things are important, they will come back. But just because you have them on this long list, you won't do them, and they will just demand space in your mind all the time, and you will jump back and forth between these things and not completing anything. This sounds very simple when I say it, but I think a lot of people struggle with this. They have these long lists of things, and it's not only one list. They have like one list on the refrigerator, one list in Trello, and one list in their pocket, and one list in the email inbox, and they know that they have to do. And at particular times in the day, they're reminded about one list, and look there, and they have a lot of things, and then another list, and it's all very messy.
My hands up. I'm one of them. I've tried Asana. I've tried, some of these productivity tools. I've tried lists. I've tried different software. I've tried spreadsheets. I've tried all of this sort of stuff, particularly when we're working in teams and I'm sharing. I often put them into shared software just so other people can see what I'm kind of working on for their benefit, not mine, because I then ignore that. And I go back to my list, which is handwritten on a piece of paper, and I do a list every day. And there's a couple of things I've been doing for many years, and I got a fine tune from reading your book. What I do is I often start with a mind map, and all of the creative ideas, all of the stuff that links or strategy or business or whatever it might be. First thing in the morning for me is my peak creative time, and more or less every morning I'll do a quick mind map of everything that's come up for me, and it just allows me to get it out. And as soon as it's on the mind map, it's like I've got a blank sheet in my head because I'm no longer holding it. And from there, pretty well every day I'd go, okay, what am I going to achieve today of all of these things? And sometimes these go through different topics, and there's different mind maps. And there's two things I took away from your book, which I've implemented already because I wanted to try them. I'm going, is this actually going to help me? Can I do it? And more importantly, do I enjoy it when I do it? That's a key for me. And one of them was the way that I'm now organizing my mind maps. For some things I know I can't get to right now, I put it straight into a mind map. It's off to the side. I've got some topics. I know that I don't have to deal with it right now. I've got some really quite pressing things in the business. So that's where my focus is. But the creative things, the things I absolutely want to do, are organized and ready to go. And then what I've got in my daily is I've got a mind map, which is messy. And then I've taken it now to giving me 5 things. So I'm limiting that, and I'm saying, no, I just want these top 5. And today, that's my goal. I want to achieve. Can I achieve these? Are they realistic? Okay, that's what I'm going to do today. So it's helped me with a bit of discipline. It's helped me with some structure. So and I'm enjoying it so far. I've been doing this a week since I implemented. I've read the book a couple of times with different focuses or foci. And the second one was purely for me. It's what am I going to do here? Not what do I want to understand. That's an extension of what I've written about and some of the things that we've talked about, which is where I went through the first read. But this was just purely indulgent. Okay, I'm gonna do some stuff here. What are my bits? So they're the 2 things that I'm implementing now. Do you use most of the techniques in your book day to day? Is that how you structure your life?
Yeah, I do. I do use most of these techniques, and that doesn't mean that this is a combination that is usable for everybody. When you read a book about the method, there is usually a lot of practices. Let's say 10 practices, and the author says that if you don't do all these 10, you will not succeed. You need to do all of them. Yeah. And maybe you suspect that the author don't want you to do like 2 of them, because then they will not refer to them as the method that the author has created or something like that. But I think that these practices are quite independent. those that I wrote about in this book, and you can do one of them or two or three and maybe be successful. And it depends very much on who you are and what context you're working in, what kind of tasks you have. And so it would be successful for different people. And I think, like you said, you have to try it yourself. Try it for 2 weeks or something like that, and then you probably know if they are usable or not. But this is quite close to the way I'm working.
I think for many of our clients, this will be enormously valuable for them. I think for quite a lot of my work, this method will work, and it will really help me with a refinement. I think there's one type of work where I almost do the opposite of what you recommend, and it might be that I'm a bit odd because I've spent a lot of time in my life engaging in sports that give me flow state. They're often high risk, and I engage in those sports because the risk gives me a focus, an adrenaline rush, that feeling of total euphoria that you get from having to be at your best to stay alive. And I think that I use that very constructively when I'm particularly when I'm in creative mode. In our book Resilience by Design, we talk about task mode and creative mode. And we almost do the opposite, myself and Mike, for creative mode. We'll choose a few tasks simultaneously that are all creative. We won't mix creative and doing the accounts. We just won't do that. But we might choose 2 or 3 different things. For me, it's about 3, maybe 4, occasionally 5 little projects that I can switch in around about 20 to 40 minute windows. I can do 20 to 40 minutes on one, then I'll switch to another just as I start to bog down and I'm sort of losing that really fast pace. And then I'll go and re-energize myself with another, and then I can switch back, and where I've got stuck on the first project, I go, now I know what I need to do on that. And for me, it's a way of overcoming obstacles. It's almost like I hit a wall quite quickly. 20 minutes is pretty common for me. Have you come across that before with other people?
Yeah, and I have the same experience that things that need to emerge, things that you don't know so much about, if you like juggle a lot of these things, then they influence each other. But I think you need time there. You know this thinking fast and slow. You need this slow thinking for some of these. But when you focus on one and you analyze that, even if you don't do it deliberately, you still analyze things. When analyzing is very much about making abstractions of things and seeing patterns about complex things. And then you, as you say, you go sideways and then down somewhere else, and this will influence the other creative things. So, for example, if you're into football analysis, then you see things that you suddenly influence how you see on organizational design, or it can go back and forth. I think this is a good way of thinking. When it's very unpredictable where you're going, maybe where you are, or you're trying to analyze where you are, and you have some idea of direction. Then I think it's good to have many contrasting things you're working on at the same time. But I think you need time. It's not possible to do it in one day and just mixing a lot of things. You need to have more time to that. You need to sleep on it, so.
Yeah, absolutely. We both myself and Mike do deliberately sleep on creative tasks or challenges. We set an intention, something like, hey, unconscious, tonight I'd like you to have a fantastic, refreshing sleep. And when I wake, I'd like an idea of how I can solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And I'd say almost always we'd wake up. For me, I wake up. I love having a shower first thing in the morning, and when I'm in the shower, everything pops for me. I get all the ideas, and then I've got to get my piece of paper and my mind map and get everything out. And unfortunately, I've got 2 young children, so that doesn't always happen. Sometimes I don't get a shower until an hour and a half after dealing with breakfast and 2 screaming children, and then any ideas that I had have kind of been deleted by reading children's books or something else. So it doesn't always work for me, but that's aspirational at least. You mentioned something in there, and you used it as a metaphor, which was juggling lots of tasks. But do you do any sports or activities like juggling that are really complicated that you incorporate into your workday? So accessing flow state from juggling is one way to get that. Is there anything that you do to get flow?
With my own body, you mean?
Yeah.
So not like with my brain, but with the whole body. No, I don't think so. I spend a lot of time running, but that's very monotone. You just run and run and run. So run like 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers or something like that. That's refreshing for the mind, but it's not. It's not very complex.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I know a number of very elite level runners who access flow through running. I was talking to one today, an elite athlete from a completely different sport, but at the moment he's running, and he was describing to me how sometimes he puts his music in and he listens to a track, and then he catches himself quite a while later going, I'm listening to a different piece of music, and he's been somewhere else. He's been completely taken away. Or he gets to about the 1 or 2 kilometer mark, and then it's almost like he catches himself and he's done 10 kilometers and he's disappeared, and then he's sort of come back in. He's entered flow state, and he's in a rhythm. And even though it's repetitive, his whole body's just in a place where it's let go. And we talk about know nothing. He knows nothing. And then he comes out the other end, and he says, I should feel tired, but I feel energized. I feel like I've got more energy when I've finished a run like that. So
yeah, that resonates with me. I have some routes that I run, and sometimes when I run like 7 kilometers, I can't remember. Then I think, did I pass that place, which is at 3 kilometers? I have no memory of that. I can't recall that I passed there.
Yeah.
So it gets mind into some kind of flow state, but it's not. I don't know. I think maybe we humans are made to we're like wired to like running, as long as we have the body that as long as we don't get tired immediately when we run. There's something with our brains that we get like dopamine showers from running. Yes, moving and seeing things passing around. So it's not the same thing running on a treadmill.
No, it certainly wouldn't be for me. My wife is fantastic at going to the gym and exercising. She does the the bike in the gym thing, whatever they're called, and she does exercise classes, and she loves the indoor thing. And I have no tolerance for it whatsoever. For me, it's got to be outdoors. It's got to be, riding my mountain bike or skiing or even with my kids, rock climbing, whatever it might be. It's very much outdoors for me. I mean, I'm really interested in this interface between flow, and we talk about induced flow. We have flow state games, and we do this as part of training for the way that we get people to access states and get different perspectives on problems and challenges. I think there could be a really interesting exploration in some of your methods with flow state and combining induced flow at different times of the day and looking at how that can work with what you're doing. I think that could be something else. That's my next step. Perhaps I'll get into some really healthy habits with what I'm doing right now. I think then that's maybe another place to go to explore.
Yeah, but I think that moving your body in a non-urban environment creates other kinds of thoughts in your head. And there are like experiments where people had to, some subjects had to go to take a walk before they should do some kind of creating experiment, and some people were just sitting in the classroom and then doing the creative experiments, and the outcome was very different for these two groups. There's a lot of experiments for that.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think there's two parts here. One is accessing the right state to be able to, to be productive and to get things done. I think the other flip side is sometimes making the right decisions then about what you're going to work on. And there's a phrase I really love from your book. It says, "It's not enough to do the thing right if we don't do the right thing." And I've always talked about effective decision making and efficiency. It's about making the right choices, and again, it's that stop doing the things that are not the right things. Shorten your list, get things off, focus on what's most important. And I think just reflecting on that beautiful sentence, I think many organizations are struggling with continuous improvement and lean and Six Sigma and some of these methods that are applied to the wrong thing, to the outmoded thing. And I've got a colleague I work with at a major utility a while back, a good friend now called Michael Story, and he used to joke and he said, "Oh, the problem is that we're putting all this investment into polishing a turd." And he said, when really we should just get rid of that. It's just shit. It's not the thing we should be doing. We're polishing it. We're making it look good, but it's still shit. We should be trying to, find this rough cup gem, and we should be working with, something innovative, something new. We should be finding the new value here. And it always sort of struck me, how do you decide between those two things? And I guess my question for you is, how do you decide what's the right thing to do? What sort of process do you use for that sifting and finding what's most important, what's most salient? What do you do?
I think that if you're going to be happy with your decision, you need to realize that it is a gut decision. It's not, you can't have an algorithm to decide what is the best thing to do unless you're like running a factory or something like that. But if you're in the messy world of humans, then you have to realize that it's a gut feeling what is the best things to do. But still, you can get input into that process by visualizing things. You can use maps, simple maps like the Eisenhower box of important and urgent, or other kind of maps or visualizations. But you should realize that these are only input. These are not algorithms that would decide for you what to do. But when you look at that and you see, now I spent too much time on urgent things lately, and all the important things that wasn't urgent has become urgent now. So I'm only firefighting all the time. Maybe I should spend more time on those things that are important and not urgent for a while, and skip these important urgent things or something like that. But you have to come up with self, because it changes depending on what kind of tasks you have now. It wasn't the same as you had 3 months ago. It changes because you are another person, or you're more busy right now, or so. So I think that's an important thing, to realize that you have to decide yourself with your intuition, but visualizations and other things are just aid to make these decisions.
Yeah, great. There's a really important point you made there. You went to the gut, you went to the intuition, you went to visualization, and what you didn't do was you didn't go to the internal narrative. You didn't go to the auditory system, that kind of logical left brain way of thinking. And in your book, you talk about Miller's, or you mentioned Miller's 1956 paper, probably one of the most widely cited papers in psychology, 7 ± 2 pieces of information or attention for short-term memory, and then you talk a little bit more about that. And I think that one of the things that we do to get around that is to use the tongue drop, to shut down internal dialogue, just switch it off, so you can tune in and listen to the gut, the instinct, and the visual, the images, as part of your decision-making process. So it's interesting that that's what you picked, that the gut, the sensations, the intuition, the visual, but it's not auditory.
I think it's very well with your resilience by design, actually, that resilience by design is not just only follow your intuition. It is by creating an environment where you can follow your intuition, because you have done these visualizations before. You have done your homework, and you know where you are, not only where you want to go. And then you can follow your intuition and make good decisions, take good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about redressing that balance somewhat, putting more into the intuition, but really building that relationship between conscious and unconscious, the rational, the intuitive, building that and constantly paying attention to that dynamic, that relationship. Yeah.
And this technique about tongue drop, I read about it in your book, but I didn't know about it before. But it sounds very interesting.
Do it if you find yourself talking to yourself, your internal commentary, and you go, let's just switch this off, and then see what happens. And when you switch that off, you might become aware of the sensations, the gut instinct. If it's your gut, it could be the back of your neck, it could be anything. It could be your earlobe. Who knows? Or the images might start coming with more clarity, because you're suddenly no longer listening to a voice, but you tune into the rest of your senses. So have some fun with it. And again, that might be another little way to play with some of your methods and see how that goes. Having periods where nothing, do tongue drop, no talking, no words. Change the dynamic. A lot of fun to explore. I've got a couple of wrap-up questions. I've got a lot out of today's conversation, and it's really stimulated me to think some more, particularly again, being pretty self-indulgent about what I do and how I do things, if I'm honest. I like to ask a question, because sometimes this really condenses down to just that one thing, which is, if you were on a selection panel, so you're hiring somebody, and perhaps for a training company, they're working with managers and executives, what one question would you ask at interview?
So they should be trainers or something like that, or
you look, if you were looking to hire somebody to train people in whatever methods, it doesn't matter. What question would you ask to recruit somebody, to hire somebody? Perhaps they're working for your company.
I would ask them some seemingly prompting question, like a choice between polarities. Which one is best, A or B? What do you prefer, A or B? And then I would like them to, but I wouldn't say that, to not generalize. So the right answer is not A is better or B is better. If they say well, it depends. A is better in this context, but B is better in that context. And if you overuse A, you will get this. And if you overuse B, you will get that. That would be an answer. Or maybe they will surprise me with an even better answer. But that would be what I would look for.
Wow.
But
that is
seemingly prompting, like which one is better, A or B?
Yeah. That is a brilliant question. I really like that, in that it almost requires them to challenge the question itself,
right?
And to say, well, I'm not going to give you an A or a B. I'm gonna say, well, A is here, and maybe in this context, B's better. So that in itself tells you something about the person you're interviewing. Are they prepared to challenge your question in a way that's respectful, and give you a justification for that? and an explanation. I like that a lot. And sort of leading on from that, and going out from an interview now to the whole world, if you could direct people's attention to something important in the world, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, there are things that's coming up about like global resilience. When we are like 10 billion people and there's too much accessible data about everyone, we need new ways to collaborate. And now I'm talking on big scale about collaboration. I mean, when humans were hunter-gatherer, they found a way to cooperate, maybe 4 people or 5, and then when agriculture came, it could be even more, 20 or something, and then cities with these informal or formal rules, and now it's 10 billion people that has instant access to each other through technology, and that demands very different kinds of cooperating. I mean, there are things like renewable sources and ecological diversity and things like that, but also I think there's a polarity between identity thinking and clan thinking. And I was raised in Sweden, so I'm very used to this identity thinking. But when I on an analytical level, I can understand that there are pros and cons with more like clan thinking. And in North Europe and in North America, maybe in Australia, I don't know, we're more biased to identity thinking. But many other places in the world, they're more into clan thinking, and people here really have a problem to understand this clan thinking, what the pros are, and that I think that would be a big challenge.
Let me paraphrase slightly what I think you're saying with an example, and see if I'm on the right track. And please correct me or challenge me if I've gone off here. One of the biggest impediments to organizational resilience or community resilience is this. People talk about silos. They talk about I'm in my department and my department doesn't talk to your department, or my team doesn't talk to your team. Or in fact, we're in competition for resources. There's a scarcity sense within that, like it's a competition. And one of the paradigms is people talk about, you need to break down the silos. And we generally say there's no point. You can't break them down. And if you do, they'll just form new silos, new tribes. What's far better is to have permeability between the silos. And this is very much your idea of collaboration, where you can still have a sense of identity or a sense of belonging or a tribal allegiance to your department, your team, your whatever you want to do, but we're going to make it so advantageous that you collaborate across boundaries and with other teams. We're going to create the system, whether it's exchanges, whether it's communities of practice, whether it's graduate programs. There's lots of different ways of breaking through and creating that permeability, that collaboration. And I've done a lot of work with organizations and multiple teams, team of teams approaches. What I haven't done is think about how I could promote that globally, which is fascinating. So my first question is, am I along the right tracks to what you were thinking?
Inside an organization of maybe 5,000, 10,000 people, there are a lot of silos, and there is a formal system. And as you said, the thing is not that we should remove them, because this serves a purpose, especially when things are more predictable. Then you can be more efficient in that way to create functions and so. But on top of that, we need to have some kind of informal network, and we need to nudge that one, because when we have an informal network, people learn from each other. They get more the decisions rely more on diversity, and you trust people in your informal network more than you trust people in your formal system. So it's much more efficient if you can find the right person. You don't need to be skeptical when someone says something, because you choosing your informal network. And this is something I think that organizations, not on global level, but organizations that I work with, they can do much more on nudging the informal network. And that could be through like open space technology, for example. If they do it regularly every week or something, they have these ambiguous topics, and you choose yourself where to go, and you can't control what people talk about in the other rooms if you're a manager. This really nudges the informal network. You get to know people and you have some kind of epistemic justice there, because you're just in a room and talking about something that no one owns the question, or no one owns the question. And another thing that I experimented with in big organization is kind of buddy system, so that people you get a buddy for 3 months, and after 3 months you get another buddy, and it's randomized who you get as your buddy. But you could use algorithms as well to get to in particular shortcut different functions and so. And that buddy could be on total different level in the organization and doing something totally different. And what you should do with that buddy is to talk every second week for 30 minutes about what you are working with, and listen to that person, what that person is working with. And after you met that person every second week for 3 months, if you like that person, if you trust that person, they will become a part of your informal network. And in the future, you know some people in different departments, or maybe your friends know people in different departments, and it would be a closer path to the people that you might want to work with. When in this big organization, what people say all the time is that we have so many dependencies. I can't fulfill my task because I need to wait on that team and that team and that team. But the better the informal network is, the less you have to wait for formal decisions. You know how to talk with, and you can contact them directly.
Yeah, I agree 100%. In my early days of working in federal government, I set up a buddy system within my teams, and there were a couple of rules. One is that it had to be non-transactional. Your job is to just go and find a buddy in a different department and find out what their life is like, and understand their daily life and the challenges that they've got in this workplace. I don't mind when you do it. I just want you to make sure that you go off and you make friends with these people, and that's your connection, your buddy. And everybody has to have one, so that we had a network. And part of the reason for this was that so many systems were broken or dysfunctional. When we needed to get things done, we wanted the informal relationships already to be established and trusting, where we could say, hey, the finance system's not working, or I don't know how to do this ridiculous piece of bureaucracy. Can you help me get through the system? And we could always get anything done, because our people were out building relationships with no expectation that they might even have to do something. And it became two ways as well. If there was a selection somewhere, and this is part of the reason I enjoy asking questions about selection panels, if somebody would be recruiting somewhere, I'd say, put your hand up and go and give them a hand. Go and understand their nature of their job and help them get good people. Because guess what? If they get good people, they'll help us as well. So, everybody wins. And there's a couple of things we've started doing recently with training, which are fascinating. I'll just briefly share with you. One is we're running leadership training, but we bring in, rather than just going to one agency, we'll bring people from the police we'll bring correctional officers, we'll bring health workers and doctors and senior administrators together, and then we'll train them all in frontline leadership in a room where they can build networks across agencies and across communities. And it's been fantastic. It's just incredible sharing of different stories, different patterns, but sometimes similar patterns and similar challenges. And they can coach each other to solve some of those issues, or they can share their knowledge and experiences. And the way we do that is we often do. We've moved from buddies to trios. We'll often have 3 people who'll form a learning trio for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, and some of those relationships are enduring, which is really exciting. So yeah, I like what you're doing. I like what you're thinking, and I like this idea of new ways to collaborate globally. We began by exploring your early days and some of your discoveries and things that influenced you. What are your future aspirations in work or elsewhere in your life? What lies ahead for you?
Well, things are so complex, so I never found this long-term goals to be usable. So it's more like I like to see people succeed. That sounds like a platitude, but I really like seeing people succeed with things, and so I try to find areas where I have a voice, and where I think that people could benefit from some kind of knowledge. And so I try to invest in that kind of knowledge and help those people. And that changes what it is. I usually have, like, as most people probably, I have more than one thing that is very interesting right now, and that I see that a lot of people will benefit from, and I try to learn more about that, and I also try to practice and coach people about it.
Are you writing another book?
Maybe a boring answer, but that's my future aspiration.
No, I don't think it's boring at all. I think, having I'll call it a mission, just to use corporate jargon, to help people succeed, and knowing that you find that rewarding is it's simple, it's elegant, it's a guiding principle that you can go, is it doing this, or are these other things that are coming into my sphere, are they not really doing that? Are they taking away from what I really enjoy and find an aspiration? So you've absolutely answered the question. Yeah. Are you writing any more books at the moment?
I'll probably start soon, and I have some topics. I'm not decided exactly what to choose from, but I will start soon with the third book. I do consultancy, and now I ended all my contracts to be able to focus on writing for a while.
Oh, wow. I wish I had the discipline to do that. I've started another book, but I'm also it's reasonably short since we published the last one, so I'm not ready to really focus yet. I'm just starting. I make little bits of gaps in my week where I can pull a few ideas, or I start pulling some books together, or I do some reading. So I'm not at that stage yet where I'm going, right now I need to really focus to get this job done, because I certainly did when I was writing. It becomes, there's an awful lot of stuff you have to put off your to-do list to get a book out. So, well, good luck with your third book. I'm looking forward to it already. I've really enjoyed what I've read so far. So I think you said at one point you don't view that you're the most gifted writer. I think perhaps being humble about the way that you write means that you write in a very clear way that normal people, and I use that word, everyday folks can read. You don't have to have a PhD in organizational literature or neuroscience to understand and get benefit. So for me, that's a sign of a good book. If I can pick it up and understand it straight away and think, busy people who I care about could pick this up and get value from it, then that's a success. So keep doing what you're doing.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for talking to me tonight. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Salience Podcast. Please leave us a review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Frontline Mind newsletter by visiting our website at frontlinemind.com. Have you got a topic you would like some more salience on? Send us a message on LinkedIn or email team@frontlinemind.com.